What if config management is coming? Did you turn it on, Chris? Did you turn it on? Is it 20 seconds? It's just too long. That's interesting. Yes, was created by game designers. So who recognizes them? So I guess the first game designer was Mark. You all know him probably. And then Luke came later. And then Adam with the big eyes. And then Michael, who's kind of taking his first steps. You all get who this is? Yes? No? Okay. Luke Knies, Mark Burgess, Michael Lahan, and Adam Jacobs. So... So they definitely didn't start out as a game designer, but probably the first thing they tried to do is kind of made a simple for loop with SSH. Who has done an SSH loop before? Hey, it's the first thing the game designers would do. Just get the simple loop to get some feedback from one to the other part. We all know that this is probably not the way that you should be solving the problems. But, you know, if it's worked for you, that's great. But if you kind of grow up, you know you need an engine because it's no use to making that homegrown tool. So nobody starts a game anymore and writes assembly code to get the graphics going. Okay, you might still do that, but use an engine to make sure that you're building on top of something else. Because it goes much faster, you can reuse the components, and actually somebody else has done the work for you. Do you all agree? Yes? Okay. So as in games, you will have the casual games, kind of the one-person kind of game, and then the big scale. So think of this as Chef Solo, Puppet Apply, all that stuff. You can do Chef Server, Puppet Server, all that stuff. And think of this with a sprinkle of Salt queuing and collective, because that's probably where this is going. Like a lot more machines to be interacted with each other. So that would make Farmville. No, Serverville, of course. So the first thing they will tell you that you have to take care of your servers as it's your own animal. Who has named their servers after an animal? Raise your hand. Yes! Spaceships. Who did that? Oh, brilliant. So we learned that we can clone the ducks if we really have to, but it's bad experience because the little duck will walk like this and it's not the same. But they really want you to give the power that whatever you build is that you can take all the options because you're special. You're that special snowflake, you know? All your servers, you have to adapt. You take a little bit of the standard components and you mix it up and you get an awesome character. It's the same way as people are building their config management. They still think they're special and they create a special snowflake, but it's not the way to go. It's compelling. But we all know that whenever you want to have something compelling to your users, yet you get a good story. So your recipes or your manifests, make them good. That's where it starts. You might start copying from an existing book and get a story and see if that works. But it all starts with creating a good code there as well. So think about that before you start. You create some prototypes. But I guess what the config management people have done is they created people with a passion. So if I'm asking the people who did using Puppet, raise your hand. Okay, would you be willing to kind of argue against the chef and the CF engine people and the other way? Because that's what usually happens. Okay, there can be constructive discussions, but it's passion and you are addicted to your tool because it's working for you. And they want to make you feel proud. So the newbie comes in, can you run your config management? Or do you need to be the super user? Where in this world are you to make sure that you had the badge of honor? Some will probably write some scripts that have some Perl code, and the explorers will put like some Node.js code in. But you know, it's kind of, there's a field for everybody, and everybody has a good potential. So the high score is it's an interesting project. What would be a high score for config management? Uptime, number of changes, you'll deliver it successfully because number of changes by such, it doesn't tell much. Happiness by your users, change request finished. I don't know, it's something we can think about, like what makes your config management successful? How do you score at the business? Another concept that I haven't seen picked up in config management yet, what would be the equivalent of virtual cache? Will the user pay you because you did a good job? Maybe something different, like if you put your code up on GitHub, that you're actually getting credits. So that might be your virtual cache. Anybody else, some ideas? Virtual cache? Something that pops into your mind? Please don't make it real cash because that's wages and stuff and we don't want that. Okay, cheating. Your config management will cheat. It will tell you that the service is up even if it didn't start the script, or it did start and it got the correct exit code, but the server daemon isn't running. So that happens all the time. The facts that you're collecting on your website, on your server, they will lie to you and they can cheat by mimicking the facts. And then they get another run as it was intended. So it's fun. But when you're doing all that stuff and playing the games, you want to keep track of your inventory. What are your server? What's on there? You see that a lot of people start in the config management at scale. After a while, they become obsessed of having the right inventory to keep track of things. Even though they think everything should be the same, everything should be as the way it's configured, you still want to keep track on what you did, on how it's installed, because the reality and the virtual thing could be different. Again, they might be lying to you. Statistics or health stats. How long does it take for you to do a run of your config management? How many resources do you have? It's all kind of interesting stats, for example, the Chef graphite handler is doing to give you a view on how your config management is actually doing as a health. How many runs were successful? How many failed? Something we learned. Optimized hardware. So you start playing on your laptop, that's fine, but maybe Razor is an example as optimized hardware. You put an agent somewhere on a system. Or CF Engine, you put it onto a phone. Imagine the scale of putting config management at the mobile level. Wouldn't that be interesting? Of course, the cloud, you can see it as a special hardware that you run your hosted Chef or something on it. But in games, it's not only the player that interacts, but how do you have one system that needs something tell the other system that he needs to change something? Because there is a change on the system or something failed. Can he just do a run and fix it again? I think it's an area that we still need to explore the config management on, because they're often just by run and they get a feedback, but how about everybody's always attached? Predict the future? In gaming, they use that on the client side to predict what the movement of the user is, so they don't have to communicate all the time to all of the systems of all of the players. So could it be that prediction in config management is that your system starts downloading packages ahead of time, or put some parts of the system into a state ahead of time because it's anticipating a run because other systems are starting to do a run? It can be addictive. And if you're using config management for a while, you stop worrying about Debian packaging and all that stuff because it's kind of addictive. You use it at a higher level, but if you want to fix things, you still need to know the real thing. It's not the virtual thing. You actually want to know the commands if you want to fix it. Do people still go into a data center, or they just feel, oh, it's somewhere virtual? Okay, granny proof. Yeah. It's a for loop in Puppet. That's not granny proof, sorry. Upgrading from Chef 10 to 11, that's not granny proof. I'm afraid it's not. So we still need to improve our skills to make that better. One push button, okay, we might take pride in the fact that it's complicated and we understand it. But I want to leave you all with a quote. And there are about 40,000 Minecraft servers being hosted around the world. It's a potent force, kids learning DevOps on their own. And I think this is the way we should look at it. Like, everybody should be able to experiment and learn from these things to improve their skill set. Okay, that was me standing between lunch and you. Thank you very much.